We're delighted to have you join us for today's information webinar on the Diploma in Corporate Governance. My name is Annabelle and I am one of the Business Development Managers here at Smurfit Executive Development. So for those of you who are not familiar with us here in Smurfit Executive Development, we're Ireland's #1 ranked provider for executive education by the Financial Times World Rankings, and we're also part of the UCD Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School, which is Ireland's top ranked business school. What we offer, we deliver a suite of fully accredited part-time diplomas in areas ranging from corporate governance, leadership, strategy, right through to digital innovation and AI. And these programs are stackable. So what that means is if you combine 3 diplomas over a 5-year time frame, you can gain a full master's qualification. For those of you maybe who don't have time to do a diploma or a master's, we do have a suite of in-person and blended short executive programs, and these are non-accredited practical programs that you can immediately apply back what you've learned to your role and still have impact. So for today's session, we'll be taking you on a whistle-stop tour of the Diploma in Corporate Governance. This diploma has been running every September since 2004, so it has over 400 alumni, and the next intake will be starting on September 17th, and this will be our 22nd intake of the programme. To tell you more about it, I'm joined by my colleague and Programme Director, Dr Margaret Cullen. Margaret has been teaching on this diploma since 2007, so she knows it inside out and she has been part of its journey as it has evolved over the years. We're also delighted to be joined by Dan Barrett and Alan Kealy, who are past participants of the programme, and current participant Louise Byrne. So this is a great opportunity, to hear from them what it is to be like on this corporate governance journey, right down to the workload, the commitment, who's going to be in the classroom with you. And we're delighted to have them here. So I'm going to hand you over to Margaret now, and I would invite you to submit your questions in the Q&A function, and we'll take them as we go along then. And the hope is that we'll finish by 1:45 to let you back and have some lunch. So now I'm going to hand it over you to Margaret. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Annabelle, and welcome everybody. Thanks for giving up your lunchtime to come and hear from us today. As Annabelle said, I'm Margaret Cullen and I've been involved with the programme since 2007, as Annabelle said, lecturing several modules on the programme, and I had the privilege to take over as Programme Director from Professor Niamh Brennan for the academic year 24-25. So just close to completing my second academic year as Programme Director. I also just want to mention the wonderful Siobhan Lane Walsh, and I'm sure no doubt Alan, Dan and Louise will comment on her contribution to this programme. A programme is only as good as its programme manager, and there's probably few that will match Siobhan Lane Walsh in supporting students on their journey throughout the programme. So if you join the programme, Siobhan and I will be the two people that you will see mostly during the course of its delivery. So who's the programme for? Well, look, it's for anyone who's passionate about governance. But in a very targeted way, I guess, it's for company directors. So whether you are executive director or a non-exec director, or whether you are considering becoming a director, either because it's part of your career path within your own organisation, or potentially if you're looking to maybe explore independent non-exec director positions in a current or future chapter of your professional career. So for those who are really interested in expanding their knowledge of governance. It's also for senior executives who interact with the board, and this is particularly important, as is the focus on middle managers who are preparing for that role, because a core ethos of the programme is viewing corporate governance as a system. And often what happens when people talk about corporate governance, they talk about the role of the board and they kind of leave it there. So when we think of governance, we're looking at that entire system of governance, taking in the entire ecosystem that is pertinent to your context. So that includes, if you're a state body, for example, the external aspect of the system of governance, which would be your parent department, and indeed, if you're a listed company, your underlying investors and so on. But we look then from external, internally, and we think of it in the context of that entire system, directors, senior leadership team, and the system of internal governance. Okay, so that's why we really encourage people who are part of that system to participate on the programme. public sector personnel with governance responsibilities, either within the state body or within the department. Really, really valuable programme, and I think Louise will comment on that later on. And of course, as I mentioned, experienced people hoping or aspiring to hold non-exec positions in the future. Okay, so this gives you a little bit of the a whistle-stop tour of what I deem as programme director to be the core philosophy or indeed the USP. So I've mentioned already that embedded is the philosophy of governance as a system. One of my bugbears from a governance point of view, having lectured this subject for close to 30 years, is when governance is very narrowly defined or seen purely in conformance terms. So in other words, that it's very much around, the board ensuring that an organisation is compliant with its regs or its system of controls is working effectively. Governance is so much broader than that, and we expand on that, and we bring you through this entire journey. So it's a core embedded philosophy of the programme is this concept of governance as a system. I guess the second USP is the unapologetic academic rigor, which we believe is expertly balanced with practical relevance. We like to call it pracademic. So we are keeping, as a faculty, myself as programme director and as faculty, we're keeping our eye very closely on what's coming through from an academic point of view in terms of the most current research that has very practical relevance. But of course, as we'll see later on, if you move down a couple of boxes there, you'll see we have expert faculty who are experienced directors in their own right, who or consultants as well as a significant cohort of our faculty that have that work in academia. So we have that wonderful blend. So that academic element of the programme is really important, because what we do is we take that academic rigour, we bring it into the classroom, and we apply it in a very practical way, using cases and exploring concepts that are very relevant to the day-to-day systems of governance and to modern-day systems of governance, The other key USP, because this is executive education, and one of the beauties and the privileges of teaching exec education is the fact that every day is a learning day, even for faculty. So a core USP is that peer-to-peer learning and engagement. So you're going to be sitting in class for in aggregate 18 days of very intense learning, full days over the course of an academic year. So plenty of opportunity to engage and learn from each other. The benefits of this are multifaceted, because it's not only because you're building networks with your colleagues in the classroom, but also you're learning from people operating within other contexts. So that could be family business, it could be state body, it could be charity governance, it could be listed organisation, it could be financial services. So that variety really blends. And there's nothing more of a privilege for me as a lecturer or indeed programme director to see that engagement and the swapping of ideas and the sharing of insights take place within the classroom. And related to that, when we think about it, we're thinking about kind of all of that engagement. A core part of the programme is that forward-looking journey of learning. So that we're encouraging the class to actually look and consider that external environment and how it impacts on their organisation, and to be constantly evolving and improving. And in doing that, what I hope as programme director, and what the faculty hope, is that we're not giving you the universal truth. This is the answer. This is how you do things. What we're doing is giving you very strong conceptual frameworks that you apply to your context. So what do I mean by that? Well, we could talk about the optimal system of internal governance, exploring a 3 lines of defence model. But we could have an individual in the class or participant in the class who is on the board of a charity that doesn't have that luxury. So what you're doing is trying to learn and explore, well, what are the core tenets of that? What's the core benefits of such a structure? And how do we replicate that given our context, given the resources that we have? So it's very much about giving that conceptual framework of understanding. In doing that, and within that classroom, we facilitate the time for expansive discussion and reflection. So it isn't a case that you come into a classroom and it is death by PowerPoint, and we don't get time to discuss. Discussion and that engagement, that peer-to-peer learning, as I mentioned earlier, is a hallmark of the programme and its delivery. One of the things that I mentioned about in terms of the conceptual framework, but linking into all of that is to assist you as a participant to critically reflect on the system of governance of which you are part, and that entire ecosystem, and reflect and say, okay, what do we do really well? What could we do even better? But also to help you as part of that system to support your board and the senior leadership team in identifying what we call your North Star of governance. So in other words, where do we want to be on our governance journey? And because often when we think about governance, we think boards and sometimes senior management can say, well, what is the regulatory requirement, or what does our stakeholder expect of us? So it's really encouraging boards and senior managers to think, well, what do we expect of ourselves? Where do we want to be in terms of the evolution of our governance, our system of governance? I mentioned the expert faculty. I'm very proud of the faculty. I'm very proud of, no matter what ask I put on them, they always deliver. And I mentioned the depth of experience in that group. We create a very strong red thread through this program. So, and that is my job as program director, to make sure that we have nice synergies, nice connections, that it isn't that you're pivoting from one module to the other, but that we're connecting them up, that you understand the relationship between them and the journey that you're brought on. In terms of and we'll come to the program content in a second. But I work very closely with faculty on the depth and breadth of the reading list, how current their reading lists are, the cases that they're utilising, and how we can create synergies in relation to the utilisation of cases. So it's all part of my job as programme director. And as I said, the academic expertise that the faculty bring to this programme, to me, in my view, is unparalleled. And this relates very nicely to that kind of final core philosophy, which is something that I am incredibly passionate about, and that is about the agility in content. And if you look at the evolution of the programme, even over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, we've integrated a strong dimension of sustainability into the programme, not only in terms of an articulation of the kind of policy aspect of sustainability, but also through our strategy module, through the application of sustainability dimensions to strategy formulation and execution. So similarly, in the academic year 24-25, we introduced a technology governance module, and you can be guaranteed that technology governance module will evolve as the technology ecosystem evolves. And of course, none of us are immune to the significant innovation in relation to AI and how that might impact an organisation and its governance. So and I mentioned, academic papers and so on, the agility in actually seeing, well, what are Harvard writing about, what's appearing in the Harvard Business Review, what's appearing in Corporate Governance and International Review, and bringing that current thinking into the classroom. So I won't labour the key benefits, purely because I've already said them, okay? So this is, if you've already seen the brochure, you'll see this. This is kind of the key benefits arising from the programme. And, without going through them line by line or bullet by bullet, they will link very strongly to the USP. But I will point out to the the second last bullet there. I have been teaching for a long time. I've kind of devoted my professional life to it. And teaching exec ed, which is my favourite place to be, as I said, because every day becomes a learning day for me as well. But one of the things I always believe in is that education is power, and power is potential. And what I want as programme director is for you to come on a journey with us and be confident to lean in on all aspects of governance, both inside and outside your organisation. We want people to be strong participants in that system of governance in the organisation, because that's good for economy and that's good for society. And we also hope that participants will move on outside their organisations and join boards in other organisations to support all of those objectives. Okay. So this is a very difficult one to read, but no doubt if you've seen the brochure, you'll see, you'll be very aware of the content of the programme. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is that participants leave the programme having hit everything that they need to hit. In other words, in terms of content, in terms of reflection. So everything from even just the very first module introducing corporate governance as a paradigm. And the reason we do that is because if you line up 20 people in a row, picked randomly, and asked them to explain what corporate governance is, they'd all come back with a different answer. So what we try to do in this program is to create a language of governance and reflect on governance as a paradigm and how it's evolved. So as you move through, you'll explore regulatory frameworks for directors, what we mean codes of best practice, depending on your context. That's for if you're a listed company, if you're a state body, charity, and so on. You pivot into the legal duties and responsibilities of company boards, and then you pivot into the more practical day-to-day execution of that in terms of the roles and responsibilities of boards in practice. And we go through starting with module 4, but as we move through the rest of the program, you'll see us delving into the most common forms of board committees that are utilised, from nomination committee, audit committee, risk committee, and my favourite, of course, is remuneration committee. So you'll see a nomination committee, I think I mentioned, excuse me if I haven't. So you'll see that thread being brought through as you delve further and further, particularly in the second semester, on that role execution. So you'll see we also focus on very important aspects of governance, such as culture. We've got very specifics in there, specifics to culture like information technology and so on. We cover reviewing the annual report. And we have experience of having a lot of non-accountants on the programme who come in terrified of the annual report and the annual financial statements. But we have the best in class lecturer, Ken O'Sullivan, lecturing on that particular module, whose entire remit is to break that down and to make it very, very digestible for non-accountants. So as you'll see when you look at this, we've covered the entire gambit, including formulation of business strategy, looking at improving business performance, and of course finishing off with the wonderful exec remuneration incentives, which is always a very interesting topic to discuss. What I want to reflect here, without going through the entire slide, is just to reflect to you when you stand back and think about some of the core elements of corporate governance that should be explored. You'll see that we're covering it. So this is not a programme that actually leaves you having to go elsewhere to fill gaps in your understanding. What this gives you is that entire gambit. And what we also give you in our reading list is not only essential reading that you can delve into in preparation for your for each module, but it also gives you recommended reading, so that when you have far more time outside the stress of kind of managing day to day business and work and life with study, but you can expand that learning, and we hope that we will give you a passion for doing that. So well, you'll see in terms of whether it's theory, sustainability, the board and external accountability, culture, ethics, technology governance, legal and regulatory, and then of course the workings and operations of the board. This is a programme that's going to give you the depth and breadth you need to optimise your role within that system of governance within your organisation. And that's my role as programme director, to make sure that that happens. And this is how it'll roll. So this is how the semester will pan out. And you'll see it kicks off on the 1st of September, where you get a introduction and a little bit of an orientation from myself and the programme manager, Siobhan. And Siobhan will tell you all the benefits of being a student in UCD, of which there are many, not only our glorious campus here in Smurfit Business School, but indeed just some of the wider privileges that come with being a student within UCD Smurfit Business School. So that's an online orientation. And then class kicks off on the 17th of September. So the way we structure the programme now, which is something that we introduced in the academic year that we're currently in, 2025-26, is that we deliver the programme over what we call true block delivery. So you have to attend for 6 blocks of 3 days duration each. So you've got 3 days in September, October, November, and then three days in January, February, and March. So this year's cohort are going to be coming in on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week for their last block. And I'm sure Louise Byrne, who is currently on that programme, they'll all be crying into their coffee on Saturday when they are finishing up the programme, because I think it is a fantastic experience because of the friendships you make as well as the learning. So you'll see within every block, you're going to be doing what we call two modules. We call them sub-modules, but I'm not going to get bogged down with that right now. So every block will deliver two modules, both of which will be in a day and a half duration. And the only exception to that is in block 4, where the financial control, the annual report, takes 2 days, and the role and responsibilities of the audit committee takes just 1 day. That's the only exception. For every other block, we have a 1.5 days per module. Okay, so within each semester, you will have a individual assignment in block 1, which is a reflective learning journal. It's quite short, but really that's a learning journal that I correct. And the real ask of the participants is that you reflect on what you're hoping to achieve from the programme, and what big revelations did you get in block 1. So after block 1, so if you think of it working at about 4 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks before block 1, you'll get your module outlines, you'll get which include your reading lists. You prepare for your block, you attend your block. In block 1, you'll have an individual assignment. It shouldn't take a huge amount of time. And then at the end of block 1, you'll get your reading list and your module outlines for block 2. And so it continues throughout the programme. And that's the rigour, that's the way that we would roll. There's also a group assignment as part of block 2, just one group assignment. And there's no assignment for block 3. The groups are configured by myself and Siobhan, and so that you don't choose who you're with. So they're configured, and you work in that group for the first semester. When you come back in semester 2, there'll also be 2 further assignments. So in relation to exams, we do have exams, and but in recognition of the fact that this is exec ed, they are open book exams. So the idea being is that you bring in all of the information that you would typically have in your day-to-day roles, and the exams will again have a very, very strong academic and more practical than academic, to be fair, element to it, and that the exams are typically structured to reflect the practical realities of governance. And therefore, what you have at your disposal is your learning materials. So there's a nice gap between your block 3, which is the 19th and 21st of November 26, and your exam, which is the 7th of December. So you have a nice gap between the last block and your exam. And then equally, when we come into the second semester, you'll finish on the 18th, 20th of March, which means you'll be finished this time next year. Believe that, in terms of your class. And then the exam will be Monday, the 12th of April. So the way it works is that on the exam day, you will sit 2 papers, each paper covering 3 of the modules. So you're going to cover 6 modules in that first semester, 2 in block 1, 2 in block 2, 2 in block 3. And then you'll have an exam paper. Paper 1 will examine modules 1 to 3. And paper 2 will examine modules 4, 5 and 6. Similarly, you'll come in, you'll have 2 modules in block 4, block 5, block 6 each. And in your spring trimester exam, you will have paper 1 that will cover modules 7, 8 and 9, and paper 2 will cover 10, 11 and 12. So I hope I got that all right. So that's essentially it. And then, of course, what you have to look forward to is the wonderful event that is the graduation of the class, which is held in the beautiful O'Reilly Hall on UCD Belfield campus, usually in December, when we have the gorgeous Christmas trees there and family and friends are invited. And it's always a fantastic event. So that's a good whistle-stop tour of the structure of the programme, and I hope it gives you a good insight into the way it rolls. And again, I am very happy to take questions on that. So I think one of the things that I'm personally very passionate about, and I'm very thankful that UCD share this passion, is that I'm a firm believer that we don't sell education. Education is not a commodity. What we ask is that people look at their professional objectives, look at their work-life balance. And what we do is we say, can you invest in yourself? Is the time right to invest in yourself? And education is all about making that investment in yourself so that you can contribute, to your own professional growth, and also through that professional growth enhance, in this case, the systems of governance within your own organisation. So I'm very happy as Programme Director to have a one-to-one conversation with anybody on this call who is interested in actually understanding a little bit more how, given where they are within their professional context, how the professional diploma in corporate governance will assist them in meeting their own professional objectives. So very happy to have that discussion with you, and also very happy again to take some questions. Um, so on that note, I'm going to just escape and stop sharing this. And hopefully that means that I can invite um, current and former participants onto the programme. So Annabelle introduced these terrific people who are very good to join me here today when at the very onset. So Alan Kealy is the class of 23-24, Dan Barrett the class of 24-25, and Louise with the scars to prove it is this year's cohort, which is the class of 25-26. So I'm going to start actually just to throw it out there, Louise, Alan and Dan, if I may. Anyone want to jump in? What motivated you to take on a level 9 qualification in corporate governance? Dan, Alan, do you want to start?
Sure, Margaret, and great to talk today. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. Um, I mean, my executive career had been spent, my senior executive career being spent reporting into boards, or indeed sitting on boards as a group non-executive. So I always had it in my plan that I would at some stage transition into becoming an independent non-executive director and build up a portfolio of directorships, ideally. Going back a number of years, actually, I'd met with a mentor of mine back from my professional and accounting days, and he had pointed me towards this course with that in mind. So the course was always sort of percolating away in my head, so to speak. And a couple of years ago, I sort of was at that sort of phase in my career that I said maybe now is the time to check this course out. And my goal really was obviously to deepen my own knowledge of what good corporate governance looked like, but also with that eye on transitioning to an INED, maybe to identify areas as well where I probably needed to invest further in myself, to become a good caliber INED, so to speak. So that was probably my primary professional motivation. And then, sort of from a personal point of view, I've probably always been a little bit of a geek, and it had been so long since I'd done any exams. I think it was probably going back 22, 23 years to my accounting training, that I sort of wanted to see, would I actually still have the ability to survive in such an environment. And spoiler alert, I managed to get through it anyway. But they were really my motivations for doing the course,
Yeah.
Margaret.
I love
Yeah.
those geeks, Alan. I love them.
Yeah.
That's why, that's why I'm going to come back to you even in relation to that kind of the preparation for the INITE side of things,
Yeah.
Alan, in a second.
Sure.
Dan, do you want to come in?
Sure. And first of all, great to be here and talk positively about the experience, because it was very much a positive experience. And the reason, I suppose, the why for me is similar to Alan. I had been engaging with boards as part of my career for quite a while. And as somebody said one day incorrectly, it's that's all very well in practice, but how does that work in theory? So I had some of the experience, but I lacked I suppose the bigger picture of how the system actually hung together, because I had a slice. I was part of a slice, but was missing the full context. Um, the course, or the Smurfits, was on my radar, similar to Alan, for a few years, because it was going to be in my plan. But really, the catalyst for me it was the first year that the technology module was introduced, and as a technologist, I was waiting for that, and then that really was the call to action for me. Was saying, okay, the time is right now. I want to do this because it now will have a flavor for me. Um, and what I would say, just on the technology piece, it's not to try and turn somebody into a technologist, condense 20 years of experience into a day and a half. It's more around, and Joe is the faculty member, and he's absolutely superb in terms of what he does. jargon busting, so it simplifies very complex topics and presents them in a way that is really looking at it from a board lanes point of view. So looking at, well, so the what, the aha, and so what is the impact? What's the risk? Replatforming, digital transformation. What should a board be looking at? What questions they should ask? And it's really from that lens. So for me, turning and looking at the topic from that perspective was really eye-opening for me. So it's not that you're learning IT, it's really about the context. And the other thing I would say, just Margaret, you touched on it, the breadth and the depth is absolutely incredible. I mean, you're going from, the regulatory and the codes, all the way right through to strategy and all the pieces in between. And you're double clicking in enough detail that, as Margaret says, you feel confident having a dialogue about any aspect of the governance structure and the processes. And really, you come out with all that context. And it was just, the timing was perfect for me.
Brilliant, Dan. Thank you. And actually, Louise, I'm hoping that the smiles on the faces of Alan and Dan gives you confidence as you head into your exams coming up now. I mean, as I mentioned, you're coming into the last block. Louise, what was your motivation?
So thank you very much, and it's great to be able to speak to people today. So my motivation for doing the course was I was appointed a ministerial appointee in a state body, and I had been a year doing that job and thought I was doing fine, and state body doing fine, but there was a lot of things happening in the media around corporate governance failures, and I really just I was checking myself to see, well, did I really understand what was required of me as a director? And I suppose there was a bit of a vulnerability for me in that space. And in particular, I suppose I went in thinking about the financial piece. So I had a particular interest in that module that Ken O'Sullivan delivers. And I have to tell you, if anybody really wants to see a genius in action in terms of learning and breaking down a financial report, it is worth doing this course for that day and a half with Ken O'Sullivan alone. He was outstanding in how he broke that down. I suppose I wear two hats. I have to wear my state board hat, and I have to wear my government department or ministerial hat. And sometimes there's an interplay there, and I just wanted to really be comfortable in that space. So where was my first loyalties too, but how to, I suppose, navigate that complexity. I was also after doing a senior leadership course with Rafi Park, and one of the things they talked about was leaders investing in themselves and being open to that ongoing education and learning. And I actually had discussed it with one of my coaches on that program that, that was an area, corporate governance was an area that I really would benefit from doing some learning on. I obviously studied, well, people don't know that, but I studied agricultural science in UCD. So UCD was a really good fit for me. I was delighted to go back. So for me, it's been a wonderful journey. And I know we'll talk a bit more about it in the round, but I've learned loads. I've brought those learnings. And for me, the real practical aspects. So from the course, and that comes from the lecturers who are academics but also working in the real world, and that practical insights, and as well as that, having a small class that come from across the spectrum of society, and that willingness to engage and learn together. So it's been hugely beneficial. I would highly rate the course. Yeah, really beneficial for me. And I'm not actually breaking it yet about the exam. So I know you look after us, Margaret. Thanks.
Of course, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Louise, to have you in the class. Alan, what was I suppose, what were the most beneficial aspects for you, Alan? I mean, Dan and Louise have focused on some of the real key aspects. For you, Alan, given your objective in entering the program, undertaking the program, what's been the key outcome for you?
Well, I mean, Dan touched on, I suppose, the breadth and depth of the course. So it really helped deepen my own knowledge of corporate governance for sure, which was my primary hope and expectation from the course. But it also did. I mean, there's two other aspects maybe that I'd stress. One, it did help me identify areas that I needed to work further on as well. You touched earlier on sustainability, Margaret, which is an area that probably I hadn't been as up to speed as I needed to. So, I went on to do a further program in that space subsequent to that, and that's certainly something that came from the course as well. But also going into the course, I was aware that of its breadth and depth and the quality of the lectures. But really, where I learned a huge amount in the program was from my colleagues in the classroom. I mean, I hadn't really given enough consideration to it in advance, or it hadn't been a focus of mine. But like the diversity of experience in that classroom really is an area where you can learn a lot from. I mean, in my cohort, there was public sector, private sector, there was not-for-profits, there was state people who were working in state bodies, regulated areas like financial services, non-financial services. So it was really the whole mix. And it really was a huge learning experience to hear all those opinions, see the different types of questions that were asked. And probably the favorite aspect for me during the course was working in those group assignments as well, where you're going in there without a reputation. They don't know you for good or for bad. So everybody's equal under the eyes of the law, so to speak. And I took a huge amount from that. It has helped me be a better listener, for example, which is an important quality for a board member as well. So I really felt that I came out very well prepared for that next stage of my career, having completed the program.
Brilliant, brilliant,
Yeah.
Alan. Dan, was there anything that surprised you, when you went in? Was there anything that really, or anything else you want to add in terms of some of the key things that you took away?
Well, what I would say, surprised, but pleasantly, and probably across a number of different areas. So, look, I think Louise touched on it as well in terms of. I think the faculty, to me, and don't blush, Margaret, but I think you and the rest of the faculty, to a person, were fantastic. Each brought their own strengths. So Ken is, if you want to walk around a balance sheet or cash flows, he's your man, particularly if you're not experienced in it. So he just brings you through. But you take Richard for who does risk. So Richard is the chairman of FPD in his real world job life. So he's the chairman of an insurance company talking about risk. So you can't get any more academic than that, where the material and the content is all very, very real. And that's right across the board. And I mentioned Joe. So I think that academic approach and the quality of faculty is good. Everybody's approachable. Margaret has been fantastic with her time, always available, maybe too much, to be fair. But likewise, I've stayed on in touch with Joe after the course. So really, really, really good. I think the other thing that I would say as well, and Mark talked about in terms of being current, and it evolving. So we were looking at cases, and look, they were available in the public domain about case studies, both from an IT perspective and governance and all the rest. And look, the usual ones were there, but you had the likes of Margaret and Niamh, who were actively involved in these cases, and we're looking at that work almost in real time. And it's a privilege to be able to get an insight. Now, there was no other information shared, but you really just got inside the head of people who were actively involved in this kind of activity. And that's a privilege because you don't get to see that every day.
Brilliant, Dan. Thank you. Louise, anything else you want to add in the context of surprises, and actually, surprises, they don't all be positives, Louise. There could be some.
Yeah. No, well, I suppose probably the thing that surprised me the most was, so I went in with a narrow lens in terms of how this course was really going to help me in terms of my fulfilling my responsibilities on a state board. But actually, I got out a huge amount in terms of my position as a senior leader in a government department, like in terms of business strategy, risk, technology, very applicable to a lot of things that I'm doing in my day job, the financial control, internal control and audit. So I sit on our audit committee and I'm on an audit and risk committee. So there were many more learnings. So I went in with quite a narrow focus of what the course was going to do for me, but actually it was so applicable to my day job. I suppose the other thing that was surprising for me, and it was how doable the course was in terms of my time. So I have an incredibly, as I'm sure everybody on this call has also an incredibly busy calendar. And it was whether or not I would be able to do the course and give the commitment that was needed. And actually, probably that was one of the great surprises for me, was how doable the course was. And I think key to that was the block delivery. So that is the Thursday to Saturday, 9 to 5 by the 6 modules. And that was hugely beneficial. And I think Alan mentioned it about the working with people. You know, these are people are all high performers coming from across society. And they all have very little time, and yet they have taken the time to invest in learning and invest in themselves. And like, it's a huge commitment, but it is doable through that block delivery. And being in the room, it allowed me to actually be in the room for those 3 days. Saturday, it was fine. That was my own time. But even on the Thursday and Friday, it allowed me to be in the room. You really got to know the people. And I have to call out Siobhan. Siobhan Lane Walsh is unbelievably an amazing program director, along with Annabelle as well. Like, in terms of supporting us and the other participants on the program, she's just amazing. Like, from the mundane to the more intricate queries or things we had with her, she's just there. And you know, you go in at 7:30 in the morning, and that's actually another perk of this course. They provide amazing food on campus, so that when you have to get up at God almighty time to beat the traffic and that M50 rush, you go and there's an amazing breakfast. But actually, over that breakfast, you get to sit and talk to colleagues quietly, learn what's going on in their world, and actually you gain a huge amount from that. And like, I have reached out to colleagues on the program outside of the course for things, so you're building that kind of professional network, which I think is hugely important. And the other thing that was surprising was the open book exams, and I would say that the people who are delivering the course, you know, all Margaret, you're absolutely amazing. You're a great program leader, course leader, and the accessibility of all of the lecturers, that's hugely beneficial. And like that, I have reached out to lecturers in terms of supporting me maybe in my own day job. And like, you know, they don't have to do that, but they are there and are willing to engage. And that's hugely beneficial. And like, I can't speak highly enough of it. So for me, the block delivery was really, really key. And it made it doable. And so much so that I can remember starting out on this journey and saying, no, this is my last study. I'm going to do this, but actually, having done this course, I really want to do the next block. I don't know what you call it, I want to stack my entitlements. It's to use a farming analogy. So I want to stack another course on this. I have something in my mind that I think would be hugely beneficial to me, and it's doable. So yeah, provided I pass my exams, of course, Margaret.
I think you'll be grand. But I think that is the thing with the beautiful, the wonderful Smurfit campus. we suck you in. You stay for the food as well. And actually, just on that, I know it's a very practical thing, but obviously, wonderful lunch is provided and tea and coffee and everything, and you're well looked after in that regard. Listen, I'm conscious of time. Anybody want any kind of parting remarks? Alan, I started with you, so will I finish with you? Any parting remark from you, just to inspire
Yeah.
our attendees?
Well, I would, I mean, it sort of touches on maybe some of the aspects that Louise was referencing there, but I would just really encourage any participant to really lean into it and give it the best version of themselves. Plan out that time, as Louise was saying, to make sure that you can be devoted to it and not be distracted to it, that you can really contribute to those assignments, because I think that's really where you get a multiplier effect in terms of payback. So really give it the best version of yourself, because the program, the breadth, the depth of what you're going to learn in that program is massive. But you can really get a huge, even more amount out of it by just engaging with it and showing that best version of yourself too. It is the advice that I would give. And be open-minded, be curious, all that sort of stuff as well, because I think that really helps to helps the class. It'll obviously make the passionate lecturers quite happy if you're fully engaged. So that's the advice that I would give, I guess. So
It's wonderful
yeah,
advice, Alan. There's nothing more pleasurable than stand at the top of a class and they've done their prep
yeah,
and they're there and they're willing to engage and interrogate and actually going back to that idea that something there isn't a universal truth, as we will
yeah,
discuss in relation to remuneration, Louise,
yeah,
in the next block. But the thing is, and sometimes it can be, faculty can be a little bit provocative for the sake of it, but actually to
yeah,
get people kind of talking and chatting and engaging, and that reflects the reality of a senior leadership team or a board, where
yes,
actually there's often diverse views, and we have to learn to engage and make good, solid collective decisions in the interest of the company while we're managing. And Louise, you mentioned multiple masters is kind of what we talk about in the class. So look, Louise, very best of luck in your last block in the exams. I know you'll nail it. Alan and Dan, Louise, thank you so much for taking your time to come and speak. And I really hope that people on the call got something out of that. And I think there's been questions coming in relation to there's a scholarship. There's a scholarship. The 30% Club are offering a scholarship on the programme in conjunction with UCD. And I think Annabelle has put information in the chat there in relation to that scholarship. So really encourage people to apply for that. So I think on that note, just we'll wrap up and please urge you to reach out to me if you want to talk to me. You can contact Annabelle or you can contact me on LinkedIn. It's the only social media I'm on, but I'm on it. So contact me on LinkedIn or through Annabelle, and I would be delighted to speak to anybody. And have a great rest of the day. And thank you so much for taking the time today to listen to us. Thanks a million.
thanks all.
Thanks, Margaret. And folks, if you're still there, I will send out a copy of this recording and some helpful information as well. Okay, thanks a million. Have a lovely, hopefully you get some lunch. Bye.